Hey everybody, and welcome to another MyJS story. This week we're going to be talking to Kim Carter. This is the first time I've done this where we actually recorded the JavaScript Jabber episode and the MyJS story in the same week. So it'll be interesting. His episode will be really fresh. I believe the episode number is 251, but since the episode hasn't been released yet, that may change. So go check it out. You can go to devchat.tv /JS-Jabber and just do a search for Kim Carter, and you should be able to find his episode. Kim, do you want to just give us a brief introduction? Who you are, what you do?
Yeah, hi. My name's Kim Carter. I'm a software engineer, do quite a bit of architecture, a web developer, do quite a bit of penetration testing and security assessments. I'm in the middle of writing a 3-part book series. I run a couple of New Zealand-based information security conferences and generally stay probably too busy. That's pretty much me.
Awesome. So let's just jump right into this. I've been asking people the same questions on these calls. I sent you the questions beforehand, so hopefully you've had a little bit of time to think about what you want to say. The first question is, how did you get into programming?
Are you trying to figure out how to stay current with Ruby and Rails? I'm putting on a 2-day online conference called Ruby Remote Conf. You can check it out at rubyremoteconf.com. Like I said, it's a 2-day conference where you can come and listen to speakers and experts from all around the world talk to you about issues pertaining to Ruby and web development. We have an online Slack channel, a roundtable discussion on Zoom, and all of the talks are given over Google Hangouts, and all of the talks will be streamed to you live. Come check us out at rubyremoteconf.com.
The first question is, how did you get into programming?
Yeah, so there's quite a bit of history there because I'm 44 years old, so I've been working for quite a while. So I'm a carpenter by trade. I started,
wow.
So out of school, I actually started working at a wetsuit factory, and then decided that definitely wasn't for me, and so I went hunting for an apprenticeship in carpentry, and basically spent about 10 years in the building trade. I had a couple of building businesses. And my body started giving me troubles, like I had sore knees and back and wrists and elbows, sort of all sorts of stuff, just from a lot of heavy lifting and throwing tools around and that sort of thing. So I decided to go back to school, and I basically started thinking about what could be the hardest possible thing that I could get stuck into, because I was quite bored in my job as well. Like I was really interested in doing like the trigonometry and setting up roofs and that sort of thing. But besides that, it was sort of like, I guess you could say the novelty had worn off. So I decided to work out what would be the hardest thing for me, and all I could think of was programming. And so I went back to school in 2000 and graduated in 2001 with a diploma in business programming, and got a job as a tester for the second largest mobile development shop in the world at the time. It was Holiday Group, but it changed names to iTouch and then to Black Bay. And then I was moved to a development position about 6 months later, and then spent about 14 months there as a developer. And at that stage, I couldn't actually afford to keep doing what I was doing, because I was getting paid so much less than I was in the building trade. And yeah, unlike most developers, I found breaking things came very natural to me. So it was quite hard for the for the software company to actually let me out of testing and to move on to development, because I was quite good at my job.
So
anyway, I went back.
Can I just jump in here for a minute, because I think this is it's interesting, and we see a lot of people doing somewhat what you've been doing, or what you did to get into the programming industry, and that is, they did something else for a long time and then realized either they couldn't or didn't want to continue with the career path that they were on, and so they learned to program. A lot of people these days, you mentioned this was back in like 2000, 2001, but a lot of people these days are going to boot camps and things like that. Have you found, because I have people ask me questions like, well, it seems like the industry wants people who've been programming since they were 4, or, people are asking, you mentioned that you went to school for like 2 years, or maybe less. And so, other people are like,
it's just over a year.
Yeah. So, I don't think you have a bachelor's degree in computer science unless you were that's all you did. So do you find that really impacts your ability to hold down a job, do the work you want to do, anything like that?
No, not at all. I sort of, basically, I just put everything into it, and I used to turn up really early, leave late, and then basically when I got home, I would just get straight back into my learning. To be honest, that hasn't really changed over the 15 years. So basically now when I clock out, I don't really clock out. I just carry on with my own projects and that sort of thing.
Yeah. The other thing I want to point out is that you mentioned that you're 44 now, and this was like 17 years ago. So you were probably in your late 20s, almost 30. And again, I mean, people think, oh, well, if I were only 19 or 20, then maybe I could break in. And I just want to highlight that too. I mean, you can come into this from at whatever age, and Kim has developed quite the expertise. We'll talk about that, but you can do that. Like I said, at any age. I have a friend. Yeah. She's almost 40. She has 5 kids. She's actually one of my wife's best friends, and she's going through freecodecamp.com, and she's getting into code now. And so, if a mom of 5 kids with certain health problems can, get into it, Kim can get into it at 28. I made the career change at 25. It's an opportunity for anybody and everybody if they want it.
Yeah, it really depends how much I think you want the change and how much you want the challenge, and whatever it is that drives you, how dedicated you are to actually achieve it, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you were making these transitions out of testing and into development and things like that, how did you wind up doing things like JavaScript and web development? Because now you talk about like InfoSec with web technologies and stuff like that. And how did you make the transition to move into the area of web and InfoSec?
Yeah, so basically it was what I actually did is I went back to building again, because I couldn't afford to keep working in the software development industry. It just wasn't paying enough. So I went back to building for a couple of years, and that was enough to make enough money to actually go back into programming again. So I went back to Black Bay as a support engineer for 1.5 years. And then from there moved on to Amendo, which is now McKesson, as a tester again. And then moved to a development position and was doing that for 20 years, and then moved to a company called Pay Global and worked as a software engineer for 2.5 years, and then to a company called Telligis, and was working as a senior engineer there. And that was my first foray into JavaScript. And to me, it seemed quite different, very different, because I was from a C++ background, and then all of a sudden I was immersed in a huge sea of JavaScript. It was a huge application, and there were there was little in the way of frameworks around at that stage to help you. So everything was based around like how you could set up structure using the patterns that we'd already all learned, and create a huge application that would actually work. And it was quite a lot of effort, and I basically just immersed myself into JavaScript and started off with a bunch of a collection of really good resources like JavaScript, the good parts, and then that pretty much will set me up to know what the good parts were and what the bad parts were, and then move on to some other resources, and then I could start pushing the language because I had a good base.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what were the things that challenged you when you moved from the C and C++ world into the JavaScript world? Like, what were the things that just really hung you up?
So basically the biggest thing was the insane amount of freedom. And I mean, it was like I just couldn't understand how you could just change types. And, well, yeah, it was just things seemed unbelievably easy, but also quite difficult to debug at the same time because I just wasn't used to it. That just took sort of like a few months to sort of start getting used to that. And, once you throw yourself into some really good learning material, like, like talking to some other people that have already been through it, and there's actually not that many people that sort of understand JavaScript quite deeply. So you want to sort of hang on to those people and listen to what their suggestions are for like reading material, learning material, and that sort of thing, and just throw yourself at it. And like when the workday finishes, just get stuck into it and basically start building some projects as you're learning. That's what I found the best way to learn. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you bring that up because I think a lot of people think that you kind of get to quote unquote senior developer and then you've arrived, right? And you make a career change like this, or even in the technology that you already know well that you're working in, you still have to continue to do that kind of thing. You still need to be reading the books and reading the blogs and seeing what people are doing and all of these different things to stay current or stay ahead. And if you're not, then you're falling behind and you're not doing the right. You're not. How do I put it? In my opinion, you're not doing right by your employer, but you're also not doing right by yourself for your own career.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think once you've been given the job title of senior, in reality it doesn't really mean much other than it's a starting point in a place where you can start to flourish and you can start to push yourself harder and those around you. And if there's people in the room around you, like there's a saying, if you're the smartest person in the room, then you're in the wrong room. And
yep.
I mean, as a junior and intermediate, then, you get brought up to the seniors level, but what happens when you're a senior and it's like, well, you're struggling to find people that understand the language better than you? Well, then you've got to hunt out other people that do. So as a senior, that's what you do. You're always looking for the better people than yourself. Yeah, so the collection of books that I actually went through in order was JavaScript, the good parts, JavaScript, the definitive guide, which was quite an interesting one because when once I started going through that Bible, essentially, because it was huge, I found so many mistakes and things in there that I didn't work. And
really?
Based on reading, based on reading the good parts. So, but it was good because that taught me to start pushing on doors and trying things that I hadn't tried before, and essentially breaking things. And then after that, it was JavaScript Patterns by Stoyan Stefanov, which was also excellent, and that just basically opened my eyes to a whole lot of different ways that you could do different types of things that you're trying to achieve. And then into the likes of Effective JavaScript by David Herman. And as we know, there's lots of other resources. Mm-hmm. And JavaScript Jabber, of course. I mean, and other podcasts, basically just immerse myself in that sort of thing. And like on the way to work and home, I'm listening to podcasts all the time.
You mentioned JavaScript Jabber. Are there other shows you listen to?
Yeah, there's a lot of them. So, I mean, there's the .NET Rocks, there's Hansel Minutes. I'm into security in quite a big way. So there's a collection of probably about 8 security podcasts that I'm listening to as well.
Mm.
Yeah.
So you get into JavaScript. How do you go from JavaScript to the security focused stuff? Did you just kind of fall into that in a job, or was it an interest that you had from something else?
So that, I think, came from my testing background. So back in 2001, when I got put into testing and just realized that bugs came to me, I didn't have to actually go and look for them. Whereas with most developers, that's not really how it works. So I just find it really easy to break things. Things just fall apart in my hands generally. So basically, it's like so when you get quite a wee way on in development, and you feel comfortable in languages. Quite a few different languages and that sort of thing, and you're looking for new challenges. It's like, I can learn so many languages, and I can learn how the languages themselves actually work, and the run times and everything else behind them. What's the next challenge? And for me, the next challenge is security, because it's harder still, but it also you get to leverage your existing skills that you built up from being a tester, and which are basically things like just being inquisitive, poking and prodding at things, and essentially hacking at things and cobbling things together, which is quite a different mindset to development and engineering. Development and engineering is sort of like, you're making judgment calls on that based on, I guess, elegant things like patterns and things that should work, whereas security is more based on things that you don't really know work, but you just want to give it a try anyway. So you're poking and prodding and hacking away at things, and then eventually you break it.
Yeah, makes sense. So the first question is, how do you get into programming? The second question is, how did you get into JavaScript? The third question is, what have you done out in the JavaScript community that people should look at?
Yeah, so there's quite a bit around JavaScript solutions and that sort of thing in the second volume of my book series, especially in the web applications chapter. Also, I've done a lot of blogging. I've been blogging for quite a few years. So if you basically just jumped on there and have looked at the JavaScript tags and web development tags and that sort of thing, you'll find a lot of good stuff in there. I've been sort of doing presentations and running trainings all around the world for quite a while, and that's I really enjoy that as well.
We'll have to get links to a lot of those in the show notes. I'll have Kim go ahead and share that in. I have a notes document here that he can type those into when he gets a minute. But
yeah, cool. So I mean, like some of the blog posts that I wrote, well, pretty much all of the blog posts that I've written have come out of people asking questions and me getting annoyed with giving them the same answers over and over again. Yep. So I just write a blog post and then point them to it. So some of those in JavaScript are like prototypal inheritance, composition over inheritance, which is not really JavaScript specific, but the examples are in JavaScript. Closures, object creation patterns, extending, carrying, and monkey patching, scoping and hoisting. Quite a few other things in there. I'm also a core contributor on the Node Goat project, which is a purposely vulnerable Node web application. So
Node Goat?
Yeah. Yep.
So it's purposefully vulnerable. What does that take? What do you have to do to write a Node application that is deliberately vulnerable? Do you actually have to
So
turn off security features, or do you just write it and not put any in?
Yeah, it's in most times it's just not thinking about security. So what this application does is, have you found the link? I can just I'll grab it
Yeah, I
and
think
pass
I
it
found
over. Okay, it's an OWASP project. So it's
Yeah,
GitHub,
I've got it.
OWASP
GitHub.com
/nodegoat.
OWASP nodegoat.
Yep. And there's also a wiki that I've got that goes with that, which is it's a regression testing set of tests. Well, actually, there's only one test in there. It tests the profile route. But what it does is, as I was talking in the last interview in JavaScript Jabber, so this one uses OWASP, the OWASP HTTP API. And what it does is it fires off requests to the Node app, but it proxies them through OWASP's app, and then tells Zap that it wants the profile route tested, and then basically that goes off and tests the profile route, and then comes back with a bunch of insecurities, and then we fix the insecurities, and then run the app again. And this is one of the exercises that I use in a few of my workshops, and it's in my book as well. And it basically just is a good way of saving a lot of money because you get to fix your defects as part of your development work rather than waiting to the end of the project before you find out about your defects.
Right.
And then have to go and basically put all the code back into your head and basically understand it all again after it's been, like it could have been months since you actually wrote that code.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of the reason why.
Fresh in your mind.
I think that's a lot of the reason why people do things like continuous integration with their unit tests and stuff like that. Is for the same reason, right? Yeah. They catch those problems before they get pushed out. They're just not necessarily security issues. They're just other bugs and defects.
Yeah. So NodeGoat also has a set of tutorials with it, which has some videos and some training material. It covers the OWASP top 10. So basically, it's got quite a few comments in the code in that as well, which gives you hints about what you need to do in order to provide the fixes. So if you watch the videos and work through the tutorials, it'll give you a pretty good idea of where the defects are, and then you can just go in there and fix them. And that's quite a good way to learn what the OWASP top 10 is. And then with the likes of my security regression testing, if you just run that and then go and fix your vulnerabilities and then run it again, you'll see all the tests pass. So all this sort of solidifies into your mind as a developer what the issues are and how to fix them. And, of course, how the security regression testing could be really helpful to you and your development team.
Very cool. What are you working on now?
So most of my time at the moment is taken up on the second volume of my book series. That's Holistic InfoSec for Web Developers. So I've just completed a section on Windows exploitation and persistence with PowerShell. I did a demonstration at the local ISIG chapter last night, which is the Information Security Interest Group, and currently organising two of those InfoSec conferences I mentioned I think I mentioned them in JavaScript Jabber. So one's the OWASP New Zealand Day. That's run annually, and Christchurch Hacker Conference, which is run at the end of the year. I'm sort of in the middle of doing quite a few trainings and presentations, like I'm setting them up to do. I've got a few for clients to do, and some like my next one is at DevSecCon, and I'll be doing sort of like DevSec is basically like a DevOps, but it's got a security focus. So it's about bringing the security focus into your development practices. So there's actually a conference for it. So that's pretty cool. And available for contract work at the moment.
Very cool. Hey there, this is Charles Max Wood, and I just wanted to talk to you really briefly about Freelance Remote Conf. I'm putting on a conference for people who want to go freelance or who are freelance, and bringing in some of the experts from the Freelancer Show to talk to you about how to find clients, how to collect money, how to build your business, how to specialize, and much, much more. So if you're thinking about going freelance, or you're already freelance and want to hear from the experts on how to go, become, or grow your freelancing business, then by all means, come check us out at freelanceremoteconf.com. Very cool. Well, the last thing that we do as part of the show is picks. So you were just on JavaScript Jabbers, so you know what picks are. Do you have some things you want to shout out about as part of the show?
Yeah. So I thought probably the first one could be NodeGoat, which is given a lot of web developers a pretty good insight on what the OWASP Top 10 is and how it applies to Node, or how you can apply it to Node. And it's a really good way of learning about what the insecurities in the OWASP Top 10 look like and how you can go about fixing them. Number two, I think, would have to be my family, especially my wife. She keeps me down to earth when sort of life gets away on me and that, and brings me back to ground zero. And pretty much, if you neglect everything but one thing in this life, just make sure it's your wife, or your husband if you're female. And Professor Frisbee's, I think this may have been mentioned on JavaScript Jabber before, Professor Frisbee's Most Adequate Guide to Functional Programming. I'll throw links in the show note as well. That's I'm just starting to look through that as well. It looks pretty good.
Awesome. So the first pick is a plugin that I use. It's kind of the backup recording, because I use another system to record these shows. But the backup recording that I get is Ecamm Call Recorder. And it just automatically records all the Skype calls. And since we do these on Skype, it just takes care of that, which is really, really nice. The other system that I'm going to pick is another thing that I kind of take for granted that works and does what it's supposed to do, and that is Google Drive. So the notes that we're sharing on this and the way that I give all of the files and everything else to my podcast editor and stuff like that is done with Google Drive, and it is really terrific. Incidentally, my son, who's been doing kind of at-home charter school thing, he's had to do some spreadsheet stuff, and we've been doing all that in Google Drive too, and so it's been working pretty well. So anyway, really digging that. So yeah, those are my picks. Kim, if people want to see what you're working on, or they want to read your blog, because you mentioned that, or things like that, where do they go to get that?
So my book's at LeanPub. So if you just search for Holistic InfoSec for web developers, I'll also paste a link in the show notes. And my blog is just blog.binarymist.net, and my homepage is binarymist.io.
Awesome. Are you on Twitter or anywhere else where people will see you?
Yeah. So on Twitter, I'm just BinaryMist.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming, Kim. We're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Let everybody kind of enjoy and digest it. Tell them to go check out your book, and we'll catch everyone next week.
Cheers.
Cheers. Bandwidth for this segment is provided by CacheFly, the world's fastest CDN. Deliver your content fast with CacheFly. Visit CACHEFLY.com to learn more.